Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, attorney from the Lohman Abdo Law Firm here in Hudson, Wisconsin. And today our guest for Western Wisconsin Journal is Neil Kline of Family Friendly Workplaces. Neil, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
Neil, you reached out to us because we're Western Wisconsin Journal and your focus is Western Wisconsin. But let's back up and tell viewers what is family-friendly workplaces generally, and then we'll talk about the organization and what you do.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah, well, Family Friendly Workplaces is a 501c3 nonprofit based out of Woodville. And the primary program that we run is an employer certification program. So we go and visit with an employer and evaluate the benefits that they offer their employees to determine whether or not those benefits meet or exceed the market average for family supporting benefits in Western Wisconsin. And the whole goal is to offer employers what we call the Family Friendly Workplace Certification, which is designed to make sure that employers have an additional tool available while they work to attract and retain talent in their workforce, which is an issue that is confronting Western Wisconsin and the state and the country as a whole.
So we're going to get into those statistics and nice graphs that you've provided to us showing shortage of workers. I know, being on the local school board, we have shortage of teachers, and that's been several years in the making. But you don't just identify problems, you offer solutions. So this certification of the benefits, what are we talking, other than pay? I'm assuming we're talking about paid family leave and...
You know, I'd be happy to kind of run through the
what are those
benefits that we ask about. We actually don't ask about pay because pay is something I think that a lot of folks already pay close attention to repeat the word a couple times there. But the primary benefits we focus on are healthcare. So how robust is your healthcare benefit? We also focus on time off, which is really important for families and children to make sure that there's time off benefits, any child care support that an employer offers, any early childhood support, so connecting employees to community resources, making sure that one of the phrases I've heard used, kids don't come with instruction manuals. So can we make sure that employees, when they're welcoming a child into the family, know what options are available? And there are a lot of options in Western Wisconsin to help them welcome that new child in. And then a couple of other kind of odds and ends that taken together can make an employer a very, very family-friendly place to work. And I think one of the points that I'd like to make, you hear healthcare, and I think for a lot of especially smaller employers, healthcare is something that maybe you'd like to offer, but it's just not in the cards, and we understand that. And so the matrix, which is on our website, if anyone wants to go look at it.
And let's give a plug to the website right now. What is it?
Absolutely. So it's familyfriendlyworkplaces.org.
So it's all one word?
All one word, familyfriendlyworkplaces.org. And then on the left-hand side, you can click in the What We Do drop-down menu and then go to our employer certification program. And you can see our full matrix there. So you can go and see the benefits we ask about, the levels within those benefit categories that we're curious about. And the point for smaller employers is that while healthcare might not be something you can do, there are things small employers can do that support children and families. And so making sure, in our view, one of the things that we really want to be able to do is help employers be able to see a path forward, to strengthen their family-friendly benefits and to use the matrix kind of as a list of ideas. Maybe we don't do X right now, but we could down the road. And what would that look like for us to help expand the total number of family-friendly benefits an employer could offer? And there's a lot of, I call it low-hanging fruit that employers can do, even small employers, that can make them very family-friendly.
Okay. So it is a kind of self-directed website people can go to, but there's certainly a contact us button, and
yes,
people can,
absolutely.
And that's what you kind of excel in, is making those contacts and being able to match up people's resources and respond to questions. Correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. So we got that, familyfriendlyworkplaces.org, and you're the executive director. Let's then go to these charts that explain why setting yourself apart from your other employers. If there's 5 other companies in Western Wisconsin that provide widgets, explain what those 5 employers that all do similar things. What are they facing when it comes to competition for workforce entrance?
Yeah. So the first chart that I think we'll show is our Wisconsin statewide net workforce entrance. And that is a projection, it's a demographic projection. And the way that you calculate that out is you take the number of 15 to 19-year-olds who are entering the workforce in a given year, and then you subtract out the number of 65 to 69-year-olds who are leaving, right? So a simplified way to think about it, you've got the folks coming in and then the folks going out, and that leaves you with this net entrance number. And I draw everyone's attention to the year 2030 and point out that in 2030, Wisconsin statewide is projected to add 129 souls to our statewide workforce.
That's 129,000.
No, 129 souls, zero. The chart is not scaled.
Wow, that's 129 people in the entire state.
In the entire state.
And again, you're comparing that half-decade demographic, late 60s to late teens.
Correct.
Now, there are people that move into the state, let's say, at the end of their college in 22, and likewise, there's people that leave the workforce before age 65, but we're finding that people that are in that 65 to 69 are more likely to be staying in Wisconsin, and the people that are 15 to 19 that are from Wisconsin, that's what you're trying to measure for this net in, net out for the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, and it's basically assuming, folks become labor force participants at around the age of 15, and then you retire out, and you're in that 65 to 69-year-old range. And so this isn't necessarily taking into account, if you really wanted to make the chart look a lot more scary, what you would do is you would layer on top of that the labor force participation rate, if we really want to get wonky here, which is at about 64% or so these days. So then these numbers, get much, much lower. And I think one of the points that I want to make here before we kind of move into our specific neck of the woods is that there really are two things that are conspiring to cause this problem. The first is that baby boomers are beginning to retire. And COVID significantly accelerated those retirements. So I think there were something in the neighborhood of about 2 million extra retirements nationally than we would have normally expected to see. And that was mostly because people didn't want to get sick and asset values were up. So retirement accounts were looking really good for folks. The other reason is that we are not having enough kids. And our natural, the natural replacement rate for a healthy industrialized economy and its population is about 2.1 kids per couple. We're in the upper 1 point somethings, maybe 0.6 to 0.8 or something like that. So we're not replacing at the rate that we really need to, and that's what's causing this massive hole in our net workforce entrance statewide.
Okay. Now, you do, before we leave this chart for statewide, there is optimism that will improve by 2040?
That's correct. And so actually, I'd encourage folks to remember kind of the shape of the line that you see here, 2030 serving as that low point. And then we do rebound into 2040, nowhere near those 2010 levels when 35,000 people were entering the workforce that year, but it will kind of naturally rebound a little bit down the road.
Okay. Now let's look at the chart for western Wisconsin. You identify that as St. Croix, Pierce, and Polk, correct?
Absolutely. So I told you to remember the shape of that line because that pattern carries through to these three counties, which are the counties that we primarily work in right now. So 2030 continues to serve as that low point. St. Croix and Pierce County each are going to add about 200 people apiece to the workforce that year. You can see relative to that 2010 number, that's wildly low. And it might kind of sound like a healthy number, but it really is not a particularly productive or good number for those counties to be in. Polk County shows what's going on across much of the northern part of the state. I'm from Polk County originally. That's where I was. That's where I grew up. And so you can see Polk County by 2030, it dipped below the line. So that means more people are leaving the workforce than are entering the workforce in Polk County. And by 2030, that means the workforce will have been shrinking for the better part of a decade and a half. For all three of these counties, this is a significant challenge, and it will meaningfully constrain employers' ability to not only grow, but even to just maintain operations. Because one way to think about it, essentially, is that employers in St. Croix County are going to be competing with each other for one of those 200 new entrants into the workforce. That is bonkers.
Right.
That is a super challenging environment to be in when you need to hire somebody. And ultimately, the take-home impact, if you're not directly running a business, what this means for communities and for our neck of the woods is that we're going to end up leaving economic opportunity on the table because we do not have the people that we need to capitalize on that economic opportunity that's there. And there are certain things employers could do. Automation is likely to become more prevalent as you work to automate things, so you need less people. It's not going to be taking away anybody's job. It's just going to be replacing a position that they were struggling to fill anyway. But it still will meaningfully constrain employers' ability to make and distribute wealth, which is what employers do. And that's really healthy for local communities to have that healthy, robust local economy. And this problem will make that much harder for folks.
Okay. And so that's the thing. Labor shortage is a problem whether you start out on a very good, solid economic foundation footing like St. Croix County, or you don't have quite as optimistic of outlook like Polk. It's an equal opportunity problem.
It comes for all, absolutely. And I think one point, too, that I'll make about St. Croix County in particular, though it's true for all three, St. Croix County is one of the fastest growing counties in the state. And sometimes when I tell folks, I show this data, it can seem a little discordant because, well, St. Croix County is growing. How can we be facing this kind of a challenge? And the answer is because population growth is not the same thing as a workforce growth. And so much of the growth in population in St. Croix County is being driven by folks who are later on in their working years, and in particular 55 years and older. And so when we look at that growth, those folks might be on their last career stop or their second to last career stop. They're not 24-year-olds who are coming here ready to have a whole career. And so that kind of makes the challenge, I hope, kind of put it into a little more context for folks.
Yeah, and I know on a more smaller scale with Hudson School District, we did demographic studies recently, and they looked at 2010 census data compared to 2020, and the fastest growing age group by some 33% was 55 and older.
Yep.
And those are those folks who, as you said, are either on their last job or second to last job, and they're certainly not having children.
Yeah, and then the other thing that plays into this, if we kind of take that age dynamic and take it one step further, when you look at median age in these three counties relative to Wisconsin as a whole, it's an even more kind of striking situation. So Wisconsin, from 2010 to 2020, the median age increased by a year and a half overall. Wow. So Wisconsin is aging statewide. In St. Croix County, the median age increased 3 years. So that's twice as fast as that statewide number. Pierce County, it was something like 3.1. Polk County, which started out older already, increased by 3.8 years. And so we really need to be thinking about what we can do as a region to address this demographic challenge that we're facing. And I think I always summarize this chart by telling people that really what this chart is telling us is that we have a long-term human resources shortage that we need to be thinking strategically about how to address. And that's really what drives family-friendly workplaces.
So again, thank you for bringing the charts.
Absolutely.
And I think you very well illustrated the problem. So now, how do employers, and we're talking about employers with less than 50 employees, let's say, what are they going to be able to do to set themselves apart from the other 4 companies that make the same widgets or do the same type of business they do, and be considered get that family-friendly designation so they're attracting younger couples with kids?
Yeah, so there's a couple of components, I think, to the program that are important to really get at that question. So we break the chart out into 3 distinct time frames. So there's an immediate shortage, which many employers today are facing, and kind of gets to your question. That immediate shortage, employers need to be focused, there's some things that maybe they might be able to think about underrepresented demographics in the workforce. So for example, following COVID, women departed the workforce rapidly and were much slower to return to the workforce than men were. So thinking if there's an underrepresented demographic that could perhaps be targeted for recruitment, that might be a great option for folks. Remote working, I know we're all sick of Zooms, and I still can't always get them to work right, but remote working can create a larger pool of talent for an employer to consider working from. There are limits to that. I can email from anywhere, but I can't weld from anywhere. So there's, that's not always a complete option. But for employers, the two main things that we really focus on in that immediate term piece is focusing on strengthening an employer's ability to recruit and retain talent. And so the certification that you can earn through us really is that independent third-party marketplace credential, a stamp of excellence that you can then take to the marketplace when you're recruiting talent. And just to kind of put a story on it, we had an employer in New Richmond that's certified, and I was talking to one of their employees recently, and she told me—
certified as family
Yes,
friendly.
certified as a family-friendly workplace, and she told me she was looking for work, and she saw the certification on this employer's website, and that for her, that really communicated the value of family that employer holds, and it was part of the reason she took the job. So employees do notice this, and they are paying attention to these kinds of things. And so if an employer can take the time to get the certification and then communicate the value that certification represents, that can be a really important differentiating factor.
All right. And then long-term solution, because you've addressed now the immediate term, the immediate and then medium term. Now, how about long-term solutions to address this problem that, the downward trend is going to go through the year 2030? So
yeah, and so when that medium term that you mentioned continues that theme of talent recruitment, and it's really focused on saying, okay, how do we recruit talent to move from the Twin Cities over into Western Wisconsin? What can we do to make ourselves attractive?
Which, by the way, we have seen.
Yep.
I mean, and we've had some unfortunate happenings, in our city with the George Floyd thing and so forth. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, it did instigate a lot of people looking elsewhere to raise their kids.
Yeah, and so we take that approach and we say, okay, Western Wisconsin, we're close enough to the Twin Cities to use it, but we're far enough away that we don't have to deal with it. That's kind of how I summarize that. And what that really breaks out into is we have this wonderful proximity to urban amenities. You can catch a flight, you can go to a concert, you can eat interesting food, whatever you want to do, you can go do that in the cities, but then you don't have to deal with it. And then most of the time that finds expressions through perceptions of safety and cost of living, which people generally view—
Quality of life.
Quality of life, which they view Western Wisconsin as providing. The challenge for Western Wisconsin is that if you think of an analogous community to yours over in Minnesota, they are facing the same talent shortage that we are, and they can say those same two things. So they're close enough to the city to use it, but far enough away that they don't have to deal with it. So in our view, if we can develop family friendliness as a defining reputational factor for our area of the state, in our view, we want Western Wisconsin to become known as the premier destination to come to raise your kids. That's what we call our BHAG, or our Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal.
Right.
Which is that we want you to know that Western Wisconsin is where you come to raise your kids. That can differentiate us from Minnesota over the river, and we can begin using that as a large-scale talent attraction tool to say, listen, once you start having kids, once you're ready to settle down, you should look to Western Wisconsin as a place that maybe you want to do that. Because we've got this wonderful proximity, you don't have to deal with it, and you'll come, in our program's fullest expression, we would certify communities. Hudson, New Richmond, Osceola would be a certified family-friendly community, and when you drive into town next to that Kiwanis Club sign or the Rotary Club sign, there'd be a sign that says certified family-friendly community, and it's all about communicating that cultural value to people so that they know that this community cares about me, it cares about my family, and it's a priority for people who live here. And that's that medium-term talent attraction piece that we're focused on.
Okay. And then long term.
Yes.
Now we're getting into the early childhood and those type of quality of life advantages that we could provide locally.
Absolutely. So we take the view on early childhood of looking at it from a workforce perspective. And in our view, making sure that we communicate to employers the important role they play in making sure that every child can enter the workforce on time and with the skills that they need to be successful, apart from the moral imperative that every child be given an opportunity to succeed. We're going to need every child to be successful because we're having less of them.
Right.
And so every kid from an economic perspective is very important to our future workforce. And so when we look at kids and what we need to do to make sure kids can be successful, all of the research and I think anecdotal evidence always points towards the importance of relationships for children in developing the skills that they need to be successful in school and then ultimately successful in the workforce. And so over the long term, we're focused on helping employers know what they can do to be more supportive of early childhood. And I think a lot of times when you talk to employers, we make widgets. What do I have to do? What does early childhood have to do with me? What do I have to do with early childhood? The answer is actually you have quite a lot to do because you can do everything that you can do in your benefits, both your policies, your practices to support the development of healthy, strong, and stable relationships with children. And the children and your employees, that is going to help kids and is an important role that you can play in making sure kids are ready to enter the workforce again on time and with the skills that they need to be successful.
So you've kind of alluded to it before, but you are a resource for business owners, HR directors, and so forth.
Absolutely.
Correct? So number one thing that the takeaway for our folks who are viewing this is visit the website, which we'll say again is?
familyfriendlyworkplaces.org.
Okay. And so there you're encouraging employers to beef up, if you will, how they become more family friendly.
Absolutely.
Then secondly, you accept donations, right?
We do.
Accept support, because you said you're a 501c3?
Yep, that's absolutely true. So we're involved. I know with Give Big going on, we're participating in that. We're very excited about it. And if anyone is interested in our work and would like to support us, we do accept donations to help support this work. And we're a 501c3, so tax deductible, all that kind of good stuff.
Now, other than individuals, because I've heard of you guys for a while, and we've had somebody come to our workplace, give information about how we can become certified and so forth. What organizations are you supported by?
Sure. So we are, there are some generous corporate sponsors. OEM Fabricators out in Woodville, Bremer Bank supports us, Xcel Energy, Cage Innovation, which is up in Osceola, Crum Exteriors out of New Richmond, and then J.A. Counter Alera out of New Richmond. All of these organizations provide really important financial support, and in the case of J.A. Counter, technical expertise for our matrix to make sure that we're benchmarking things appropriately. So we rely on those corporate sponsors and then private donations. We've got a number of donors that we're very much appreciative of, and we're always excited to welcome more into the ranks of making sure that we're family friendly and achieving that BHAG and making sure that we support kids as they go through life.
So you are not funded by government taxpayer dollars?
No.
Okay. And so then the third area, in addition to encouraging employers to ask you to be a resource and to accept donations, there's this offer of promotion to other industries and partners. You're willing to put the show on the road, so to speak. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think one of the important things that I think we really value is the opportunity to, much like we're doing here, to share the problem with people so that everyone can begin to appreciate the kind of whole approach that needs to be taken to try and address the workforce shortage that we're facing. So as you said, I am happy to take the show on the road. And so if there is a Rotary Club or a Lions Club or a local church or anybody who's interested in learning more about what we do and becoming involved, my email is on the website, and I would be more than happy to come and visit and talk about what we're working on here.
Well, I'm a member of Hudson Daybreak Rotary, so let's talk
Good.
after
I'd love to
camera.
come.
Okay.
That would be great.
All right. But you are located out of Woodville, so
That's right.
you're kind of central to the three counties.
Yep, that's right.
And that's where your intended focus is. But if places are on the border or whatever, you'll still visit.
Yeah, and I think just to put a finer point on that, we our primary focus is on these three counties. We will certify folks who are from outside of these three counties, and there are plenty of employers who have operations maybe in St. Croix County and in Dunn County or in Eau Claire or whatever the case might be. We will absolutely look at certifying you. We don't have a hard or fast rule on that. We're primarily focused on recruiting in these three counties, but we welcome all comers.
All right, very good. So Neil, anything more that we haven't touched on, the message that you wanted to get to our viewers?
I don't think so. I really appreciate the opportunity to come, and I hope that this data can begin to help people begin to think about what they can do in their communities to address this workforce shortage, because it is a big challenge, and we need to be thinking about what we're going to do to make sure that we can try and solve it.
Well, and I appreciate you being willing to come on, because I've always been a believer that government isn't the answer to all of our problems, and things that can build the strength of the family by having certified employers that are family friendly is just another way that we can strengthen ourselves as a community as well. So,
absolutely.
Neil, thanks a lot for coming on the
Thank
show.
you so much for having me.
And again, viewers, it's familyfriendlyworkplaces.org. Please visit the website, contact Neil, and if you have an organization where he can make a presentation, please let him know that. And we hope to hear from you again, maybe, and see what kind of progress we're making in that regard. And I want to thank our viewers and encourage you. I'm Jamie Johnson. Keep watching.